Welcome. We're starting our first workshop now looking at our strategies. And in fact, the strategies that we've developed or are developing for hydrogen drive, the hydrogen concept. BMW's success, ladies and gentlemen, our success in the market is of course to a large extent attributable to our products, the brands we have in the market, and of course the emotional appeal of the company. And I hope that you've experienced this yourselves this morning, feeling that same emotional appeal and above all sheer driving pleasure in a hydrogen car this morning. Now, of course, over and above all this, to be successful or to remain successful in the long term, you need more. You need features such as a clear corporate strategy. You need the right kind of corporate and social responsibility as well, a very important factor for a company that wishes to be successful in the long term. In fact, corporate or social responsibility is the highlight that we're emphasizing here, as you can see, and here we have achieved a very interesting result, above all with or through hydrogen, which is also one of the reasons why you're our guest today. If we now ask what are the big challenges facing us today in terms of mobility, then let me just present the following points which you'll be seeing this afternoon again from Mr. Brace, because he'll be referring in even greater detail to the background factors here and possible solutions. So the very important point I'd like to present from the start is that everything actually dates back to the 60s, to the 1960s, when mankind was first confronted with smog, with air quality problems, starting first in California, but with similar problems, you might say, or similar challenges in all big cities, with the quality of air becoming really bad, so you really couldn't even look out of the city anymore. And then we, of course, also decided at the time, mankind, we all decided at the time, to reduce harmful emissions. A different policy was introduced for this purpose in various countries, but actually everything originated from California, with the requirement, as you know in California, to have a zero-emission vehicle. The next point is in the 1990s, when we started focusing more on the Kyoto Protocol and climate change. In other words, when we all realized the need to change our behavior because of the greenhouse effect. Mankind realized that Earth global warming is primarily a result of CO2, of the emission of CO2, and we all asked ourselves how fuel consumption could be reduced, fuel consumption by the car, which is one of the reasons for CO2, and what this means to mobility. Proceeding from this, the car industry, above all in Europe, made a commitment for the year 2008, stating that we would be able to reduce our emissions down to 140 grams per kilo of CO2 per kilometre. 10 years later, in the year 2000, we of course have realized again that of course we're subject to finite energy supplies. So whether it's gas or any other form of fossil energy, for decades, we always heard, 30 or 40 or 50 years, that's how long it's still going to last. But it's obvious, it's always been obvious, that these supplies are finite, that they're limited. And there's no government, ladies and gentlemen, there's no country which does not look seriously at these issues, these challenges. And so the question to us, what are the requirements for long-term mobility? We must have no more emissions, we must have no more CO2, and of course we must have more flexibility and not be confined by finite fuel supplies. And that's why we see the use of hydrogen as the solution for the future. Moving up from today to tomorrow and the day or the period beyond tomorrow, we know what we need, we know what sources of energy we require, and of course it's obvious to us as a manufacturer offering sheer driving pleasure, it's obvious that in this case we want our cars, our models of the future also to offer this kind of driving pleasure. A vehicle that's not a BMW anymore is not acceptable to us, especially because today we're looking at the combination of efficiency and dynamics, which is why we refer to efficient dynamics and sporting performance on a minimum amount of fuel. Here we want to set the benchmark in the market and really stand out from others. So what is the approach from today to tomorrow and then on to our vision of the future? Well, the interim step will be to further develop efficient dynamics next year we'll once again significantly reduce our fuel consumption, both with our petrol and diesel engines. We'll have hybrid functions such as start-stop systems, brake energy regeneration. All that will be offered in our entire fleet, not just in individual models, but rather throughout our entire fleet in all of the ASEA countries, the countries covered by the European Association of Car Manufacturers, since you have to have an overall improvement in your entire fleet to be really effective.